We're in Kufit Gimel Halacha. I'm going to read the halacha, but really we're going to need some background to understand it. The Kashrus is like this. Kol Bishul Yisroel Ma'at Bishul. If the Jew participated, cooked the food even a little bit, bein b'tchila bein b'soif, whether he did that at the beginning of the cooking or the end, mutter, the food becomes Bishul Yisroel. Whatever he did, any little bit that he did is enough. If the guy had put meat or a pot of food on the fire, so it was cooking as Bishul Akum, and the Yid did something to the meat. It says hafach, we'll see what that means in a minute, or he stirred the pot, or shehegis Yisroel, I'm sorry, and he did that, or the opposite case, shehegis Yisroel, the Gemara of Kechavim, the Yid was the one who did some stirring and the guy finished the cooking. So Hari is a mutter, it's Bishul Yisroel, because the Yid participated at the beginning or the end, it's good enough.
The pot on the fire?
The pot is on the fire. Yeah, the pot is on the fire.
If it was off the fire, then...
Right, that's correct. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, I'll get to that. And the Rema says, even if the food would have not cooked through the Yid's cooking, what the Yid did would have not been enough to cook it, it's still mutter. Okay? Now, what's going on here is that really the next 6 halachas, this halacha and the next and 5 afterwards are based on one Gemara. So that's why you need to fill you in what the Gemara says. And then we'll see where it fits into this whole thing. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara is about this on Lamed Chesed and Alf. The Gemara says like this. If a Yid put food on the fire in a way that it would never cook, okay, he put it whatever in some place on the fire that it would never cook, and then the guy does something to make it that it actually can cook, that's not Bishul Yisroel. Even though the Yid put it onto the fire, the Gemara says pshita that thing is not Bishul Yisroel, because what the Yid did could have never possibly cooked the food. Now, what happens if the opposite case? The Yid put the food, or not opposite, a different case. The Yid put the food onto the fire in a way that it could cook, okay, and then the guy did something to make it cook faster. Okay, but what the Yid did could have cooked the food, then that is considered Bishul Yisroel. That's what Gemara is. The Gemara doesn't say it's only fresh. The Yid put the food on the fire in a way that it could cook. Svarim is going to be the next halach. Okay, we're not for today. So the Gemara says he put it on in a way that it could cook, and the guy made it cook faster. That's Bishul Yisroel. Now, the Gemara is medayek that the pasuk says Hiniach Yisroel. I don't remember the words. He put the meat on the fire, and the guy did something. Okay, the implication of the Gemara is that the Gemara is medayek that it means is even if the Yid just put it on and it didn't sit there for very long. Okay, it just says the Yid put it onto the fire, and then the guy did something afterwards, implying that even if it hadn't cooked anything, the Yid put it down, and 2 minutes later the guy moved it around. In fact, the Gemara, there's another member that says that it's only considered Bishul Yisroel if the Yid cooked it Kamat Ben Shoshoy. How could it say that you just put it down, and then the guy did something else? It's still Bishul Yisroel. We have other members that say that it has to be Kamat Ben. The Yid has to do something Kamat Ben Shoshoy. So the Gemara answers like this. I'm telling you the answer, the way the Yisroel learns the answer to that Gemara's kasha. The Gemara answers like this: if the case when we're mako to say that it is Bishul Yisroel is when the guy didn't undo the Jew's act, which is to say, imagine the meat's on the fire over here, and it would cook over here in an hour, okay, and then the guy slid it over a little closer to the fire, then now it cooks in a half an hour. Okay, so the food stayed on the fire. What the Yid did that it was on the fire stayed there, and the guy made it a little closer. That's considered that the Yid's cooking, even though the Yid hadn't cooked it at all, it was on there for just 2 minutes, that's considered Bishul Yisroel. Lafuke, let me say the opposite case. Lafuke, if the guy would take it off the fire and then put it into another place, then we would say the Yid's action is finished. What the Yid tried to do to start the cooking, if it didn't cook Kamach Ben Treshoy, the Yid did nothing. And then the guy is putting it on. It's like a new thing. He just put it on from fresh, and that's not considered Bishul Yisroel. Okay, so the Gemara learns that when it says here in this din vehipech Yisroel, the Bishul point that it says vehipech Yisroel, vehipech Hagoy, doesn't mean that he flipped it over, because if he would flip it over, that means he had to get it off the fire for a second. Okay, so if you flipped it over, that wouldn't be Bishul Yisroel anymore. It would only be mutter if you somehow moved it around that it cooked faster. But if you did something that made it be off the fire for a while, then it's not Bishul Yisroel, unless the Yid had cooked it Kamach Ben Shosai. Okay? what's the difference? The difference is that in one case, in the case where the guy just moved it around on the fire, like he stirred the pot, then the yid's cooking is still continuing. The yid put it onto the fire, and it would have cooked in an hour. And that action is still going on. The guy did something to make it happen faster. That the Gemara says it's the chiddush, that works even though the guy made it go faster. Lamai says the yid's cooking is being cooked by a yid. If the guy had taken it off the fire, so then we say, look, the yid's action is over. What he was trying to do is gone. Now that he was trying to do is gone, the guy did all the cooking, the yid didn't make kamach ben jasoy, so it's awesome. Okay?
Even though it's oid biyodei, it's oid lahachzer.
Right. now, the Bach doesn't like what the Beis says. The Bach says the Gemara doesn't mean as strong as the Beis learns. The Gemara means is that the Gemara means is the case when it's aser is when the yid took it off the fire and the guy on his own volition put it back onto the fire. Okay? The yid took it off the fire and then the guy on his own decided to put it back on. But if the yid would have been watching him do it, or the yid would have told him to do it, or it would have been under the yid's direction to do it, it's still considered the yid's action is still continuing. That's how the Bach learns. Okay, we're going to see that more in Halacha Tes, I think it is. There's going to be a shadow that had what shot in this Bach. Okay, but the Beis doesn't learn. The Beis does not learn like that. The Beis learns if it gets off the fire. Okay, there's not dealing about Chazar for Shabbos. If it gets off the fire, it's off the fire. The yid's action is over. So then it depends. If it was cooked kamach ben jasoy, then the yid did enough. If it was not cooked kamach ben jasoy, then the food is no good. Okay, it's halacha. It's a halacha ches. It's going to be a halacha ches later. Okay, now, so that's what the Gemara says. What I just told you is what the Gemara says. These next 6 halachas are based on that Gemara. Okay, just to help you put it into place. In halacha yud, the mechaber is going to say the din about when the yid put it onto the fire that it can't cook. That's going to be the most common case. When the yid put it into a place on fire where it can't cook. In halacha ches, it's going to go backward. In halacha ches is going to be a case where the yid put it onto the fire and then the guy took it off the fire completely and then put it back on. And our halacha vav, is talking about where the yid put it onto the fire where it could cook and the guy moved it around to a place where it'll cook faster instead of slower. Okay, that's just the order. And the middle halachas, I told you 3 halachas. The other ones that I missed are extensions of those cases. Okay, the Gemara says one more thing. What happens if it goes the other way? What happens if the guy was one who started the cooking? We're talking about the case where the yid started the cooking, and then the guy ended the cooking. Or the guy did something to change in the middle. The opposite case, what happens if the guy started the cooking and the yid did something to make it go faster? The Gemara talks about that also. That's the continuation of the Gemara. That's halacha tes going to be what happens in the opposite case. Okay, it's a little bit a remez in our case. There's a remez to it in our case also, is whether the yid started or ended, but really it's going to be an halacha tes.
I have a question. According to Yisroel, if the guy takes it off the fire and puts it back on, so then it's not Bishul anymore.
If he took it off before it was kamach ben jasoy.
So over here in this halacha it says when the guy put it on, right? So this hafach would also not be a flipping; that would be also moving.
Right. It has to. Well, no. Hafach Yisroel. No. Hafach Yisroel
then
means that when
it's okay.
Right. When Hafach Yisroel means at that point the Jew's action starts. Then if he took it off, it would be even better.
Right. So
the hafach over here is not clear. It's very not clear. The Beis himself says, he asked the kasha, he said, what does the Gemara mean by hafach? Hafach means you took it off the fire. So he says, no, hafach means this in this case. Okay? But what's strange is in the Shulchan it doesn't say that. The Shulchan doesn't clarify it, but if you're going to look later, if you get to halacha yud and halacha ches, he's going to explain that if you got it off the fire completely, then the yid's action is over. So you're supposed to sort of figure that out. Okay? But he makes a point of this, that hafach does not mean that you mamish took it off the fire. Okay, which is not a simple way of reading the Gemara, but he said that's what he's medayik also. The Rambam is more clear, and he's medayik that the Gemara puts it together with the case of Haggis. When you stir the pot, you don't take it off the fire; you just stir it up. You don't get it off the fire. Okay. So the big kash over here is that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Is the kash is let's look at the Ramah. Okay, what does the Ramah say? The Mechaber said whether the Jew did his little bit of cooking at the beginning or the end, it's fine. It's mutter, even if it would have never cooked had the yid had the guy done anything. If the yid would have done just his thing, it would have never cooked. So what's going on here? That's not true. The Gemara says not like that. Okay, the Mechaber, you should know the Beis Yosef even says he asks the kasha, how come the Rambam doesn't bring this in? How come the Rambam doesn't say that if it would have never cooked by the yid, if the yid's action would have never cooked the food, it's usher. How come Rambam doesn't say that? Because it's so partial. He doesn't have to say that. Okay? And the Mechaber himself does say it in Halacha Yud. Yeah, but the Rama says not like that. And everybody is kind of, the Rama's mamish straight out against the Gemara. The Gemara says it's pashut that if what the Yid did was, he put it onto the fire in a way that it will not cook. The Gemara says it's for sure not Bishul Yisroel. So what does Rama mean? What is he talking about? Okay? I mean, the Gemara says, so I can't Gemara. I don't know his word. He says, the Gemara before Hepach said, it's just not true. It's like, it can't be. Okay. There's a few answers to this question. A few possible answers to this question.
The Gemara doing what? That you sort of have to do.
The Gemara says if the Yid put it on the fire in a way that it won't cook, he put it on the corner or something, then the guy makes it fit, makes it closer or something like that. The Gemara says it's partial that's not Bishul Yisroel. So the Rama says, what is he talking about? Okay. So the Taz has two answers. His first answer is, what Rama means is that afilu hayim mispashal means it wouldn't have cooked completely, but it would have cooked kamach ben Jusai. He said afilu hayim mispashal means it wouldn't have been mispashal completely. It was in a corner that it'll never get all the way cooked. It'll only get half cooked. It'll only get kamach ben Jusai. And in that case, when it wasn't mispashal means it wouldn't cook fully, but it would cook enough to be edible. And that's the case that the Ramah is being made clear. Okay, you understand that's a big dachik in the Ramah. The Ramah says, "Afilu hayim mispashal." Where's the conditions over here? What's he talking about? Okay,
That's not funny in the Mitzvahs. If we can get halfway cooked, a fully cook it.
see, what's such a thing that it can get hot enough to cook partially and not all the way?
Especially if you define a third way cook as a third of the time. It takes to get fully cooked.
Okay, all right. So you're right. We couldn't say time. We mean is cooking wise, but you're right. So maybe it means that the final get cooked. I don't know. Anyhow, but according to this text of the Taz is basically saying the Ramah doesn't say anything. Okay, according to this shot in the Taz, the Ramah is just saying the Gemara in a very strange way, and we can basically ignore what the Ramah says. Okay, as you can imagine, the Taz is not so thrilled about this. Okay, I'm going to switch now to the Shach before we get back to the Taz's other answer. The Shach has an answer that he says maybe you could say, maybe the Ramah is talking about that the Yid, not only did he put it onto the fire, but the Yid also lit the fire. Okay, our din is not talking about that the Yid lit the fire. Lighting the fire is going to be the next thing. Our case is talking about a guy made a fire and the Yid put it on. We said all the Yid did was put it onto the fire, so therefore it depends what the Yid did. Maybe the Ramah is talking about a case where the Yid lit the fire also. Okay, so the Shach says the Shach says, listen, that can't be pshat. Not only does that not make sense because the Ramah doesn't say that the Yid lit the fire, he says, but if the Yid had lit the fire, why would he have to put it onto the fire? If he had lit the fire, the Ramah is an Ashkenazi, right? The Ramah holds, if the Yid lights the fire, it's good enough. That's going to be next halacha. So if the Yid had lit the fire, why would it have to be the Yid put it on and all these kinds of, wouldn't make a difference. Okay, the Ramah, the Shach, nothing. He doesn't like this answer. Okay. Taz's second answer.
One second.
I just now switched you to the Shach's first answer.
So the Shach is saying, so according to the Shach, if the Jew lit the fire, then
you would have to do nothing. You wouldn't even have to put it on. He's saying the Ramah is talking about a case where the Yid also lit the fire. Then the Shach says, what are you talking about? If after the Yid lit the fire, why would the Yid have to put it on? But the Mechaber says if the Yid put it on the beginning, or he flipped it over, he did something, the Yid wouldn't have to do anything. If the Yid lit the fire, he wouldn't have to do anything.
If he lit the fire, put it on the fire.
He lit the fire.
So he lit the fire.
He's putting on this.
And who put the pot on the ash?
The guy.
So the Jew didn't do any bishul.
Right, but he lit the fire. The Ramah holds that lighting the fire is enough. So if the Ramah is talking about a case where the Yid lit the fire, so then it would be Bishul Yisroel because he lit the fire.
Yeah, but if the fire couldn't cook it, the Jew lit the fire, the fire couldn't cook it.
No, the fire could. A fire is a fire. Of course the fire could cook it. Afilu hayim mispashal means is I lit the fire and then I put the food in the corner where it wouldn't have cooked it, and then the guy moved it closer. So that case is mutter.
Okay.
So the Shach says, but if I lit the fire, if the guy would have done everything, it would be mutter.
It seemed like you're saying you put the thing on the fire as a domet when you lit the fire.
Say it again.
I just read the words.
Okay, go ahead. That says.
It says, "V'eshalom the kamay b'sheniach Yisroel hagachalim sheniach Yisroel hagachalim hokach afilu." He put the coals.
Mm-hmm.
So he put the thing on the coals. Aval mishan lo hayim special below siyah u'ikhavim shari to have a kihad lakas aish. B'sivzayin.
Correct. Okay.
So he lit the fire. He put the thing on or he put the coals. Doesn't he put the coals? Put it on the coals.
Same thing. Put the coals into this place. They're going to go. Okay. So the Taz's second answer is, I'm not going to tell you the details, but the Taz says that the Gemara is chayzer from what we said. The Gemara says that the Yid, if the Yid put it in a place where it can't cook, then it's never Bishul Yisroel. So the Taz wants to learn pshat on the Gemara number days that the Gemara was chayzer from that answer. Okay, which nobody learns like that's pshat. But the Taz says, what we want to get from the Taz is that the Taz says that why does the Ramah learn that the Gemara is being chayzer from it? Because we're going to find out in the next halacha that Ashkenazim hold that Hashlachas Kiseim works for Bishul Yisroel, to make something Bishul Yisroel. The Gemara says Hashlachas Kiseim does not work. According to the Gemara, it does not work. How could the Ramah hold that Hashlachas Kiseim works? Must be he holds that the Gemara was chayzer. So if the Gemara was chayzer, just like the Ramah holds the Gemara was chayzer in Hashlachas Kiseim, the same chazara works for this din of that the Yid has to do a cooking that even does something. Okay? And of course, there's a connection between them. There's a connection between Hashlachas Kiseim and the food and saying that the food has to not, he doesn't have to do something that will cook. Both of them are acts that have nothing to do with cooking. Hashlachas Kiseim doesn't make the food cook. If Hashlachas Kiseim can make it Bishul Yisroel, then this thing is somewhat similar to that. I'm doing something, I'm putting it onto a fire in a place that he can't cook. So the Taz says the Gemara was chayzer from this requirement that the Yid has to do something that'll cook it, that'll cook it, and therefore it could be mutter even if you put it on a place in the fire where it can't cook. Okay? And the Shach says almost the same answer, a variation of that answer, which is the Gemara says Hashlachas Kiseim doesn't work. That'll be for next halacha. Hashlachas Kiseim really does not work. So why do we do it? So Taisus brings that there's the Chilufim in Hagim bein Bavel Eretz Yisrael, and in that Chilufim in Hagim, whatever that is, it says that Hashlachas Kiseim does work. So even though the Gemara says it doesn't work, we don't pass like the Gemara. Okay, so it's a variation of what the Taz says. The Taz says the Gemara itself, according to one way of learning it, the Gemara was chayzer, or that we don't hold like the Gemara. We don't pass like the Gemara. We don't pass like the Gemara. Okay, so this Chilufei Yisroel ben Eretz Bavel.
What does that mean?
It's some sefer or whatever it is. Well, that's for next week. Okay, not next week, but next time. But some kind of a sefer that says minhagim that we have not like that, which are minhagim not like the Gemara. Okay, not like the Gemara. And Hashlachas Kiseim is like that. So the Taz learns that we don't follow the Gemara because there's a way to say that the Gemara changed its mind, and the Shach says that we don't follow the Gemara because we have some other reason not to. Both of them are saying the same point. The Ramah, who's makel about Hashlachas Kiseim, is going to be makel about this case also. Okay. Now, the Shach is meramis that there is a difference between Hashlachas Kiseim in this case. Okay, there's a big difference. By our case, the Yid, what did he do? He put food into a place that it can't cook. It's like saying he put the food onto the counter. Okay? He put it someplace where it can't cook. So the guy did all the cooking. The Yid did nothing. In the case of Hashlachas Kiseim, there's a fire that was created by being mashliach, by throwing in the Kiseim. We say it now becomes like it's the Yid's fire. So the cooking was done on the Yid's fire. Okay, now that's for next halach also. So that's talking about that. So it means it's a Yid's fire. If it's the Yid's fire, so then the cooking was done by the Yid. Okay, so there's a big difference between Hashlachas Kiseim in our case. In this case, if the Yid put it in a place where it can't cook, he did nothing. He didn't do anything. It's like he put the food on the counter. It has nothing to do with it. He took it out of the freezer. That doesn't make it Bishul Yisroel.
So what's the difference in this case? I mean, we hold that the Yid put in the fire also doesn't do anything. It makes the whole fire.
But by making he made a hecker in the fire, and that somehow converts the fire to being the Yid's fire.
The case was the Yid lit the fire, then the guy came.
The Yid lit the fire, and
then the guy put the food on it.
Right.
And that's good. So why is it different?
Why is that different? Because then it's the Jews' fire that did the cooking. So there's a way to say that this Bishul was Bishul Yisroel, because at least it was my fire.
Yeah, and over here.
And over here, the guy lit a fire, and I put the food in so far on the edge that it couldn't cook over there. So what did I do? It's like I took the food out of the freezer. I didn't do anything. At least in the case where I did Hashlachas Kiseim, there's a way to connect the cooking to me. Say, I made the fire. What did I do? Here I put it on the edge of on the corner where I put it couldn't cook anyhow. So the Shach is meramis that he's not so, that there's a chiluk. He doesn't say what it is, but he's meramis there's a chiluk in these cases. The Shach seems to not hold like the Rama. The Shach sort of ends off that he doesn't hold like the Rama. And the Taz himself, who also said similar pshat in the Rama, says you can only be makel, but siruf, halacha we had in halacha dalid, that there are those who hold that the Beis Shel Yisroel, there's no Isser Bishul Akum. Okay, there's a Rabbeinu Rafayim that there's no Bishul Akum in Beis Shel Yisroel, which don't pass like that. But Bitzir, there's no Isser Bishul Akum if the cooking is done in the Jew's house.
Why?
So, no, not because Hagen. No, that's others who will make it. The Rabbeinu Rafayim holds is B'chal no Isser. So therefore, that was halacha dalid. So Bitzir of that cheetah, which we don't pass like, Bitzir of that cheetah, you could be some B'chal Rama. Okay, so the Taz is not so through.
Cooking in your house, it's okay.
According to Rabbeinu Rafayim.
I've heard people try to use it.
We don't pass like that. We don't pass it. So the shot. Not a shifcha.
I was in a shul, and the guy did it, and the person said, well, this is a basis shul, so it's a mutter.
Right, so you'll listen to the videotape of Halachah Dalet. Okay, that's what we talked about that. But the Taz was only shot in the Ramah that it's based on the next halacha on this Ramah Shita is not so thrilled with it. He ends off saying you could maybe make a basis to Yisroel. The Shach himself, he doesn't say he doesn't like the Ramah, but he sure doesn't. He ends off in a tone that sounds like he doesn't agree with the Ramah. Again, more along these lines, but helps make it clear, is Chodesh says, he tells you look at the Teres Chatas, okay, which for sure he knows, but everyone knows that Teres Chatas is written by the Ramah himself, okay, and the Teres Chatas, and even more clear in what's called the Simanim of the Teres Chatas, the Ramah wrote a kitzur of the Teres Chatas in the back, okay, like a short version, just the Halacha L'maisa, where the Ramah says, the din is, like the Gemara, that if a Yid put in a place where it can't cook, the din is that's not considered Bishul Yisroel. He says, but if just like we're makel about Hashlachas Kiseim, we're makel about those kind of things, so we'll be makel about this also. That's what the Ramah himself says that. Just like we're makel about those things, we'll be makel about this also. Okay? But the Ramah sticks in B'diavad. The Ramah says, therefore, B'diavad will be makel about those things. Okay? And in the Siman of the Torah's Chat, it's even more clear that he's only be makel B'diavad. Okay? He says, B'diavad, you could be samach on like that, we're going to be samach like that. And what's interesting is that in our din, the Ramah doesn't say the word B'diavad. It doesn't say it's only mutter B'diavad, he says it's mutter. Okay? Which is going to be, we're going to see that about it next time, which is, the Ramah there also, the din of Hashlachas Kiseim, there also, the earlier person we talk about it being mutter only B'diavad, and the Ramah doesn't say anything about that. Okay? It's a very similar thing that B'diavad got lost in the, so to speak, translation into the Ramah, what we have in the Shulchan. Okay? Anyhow, there's a... I lost myself here. Okay, so in that Achronim, so as you're hearing, just hear what we're saying over here, just to summarize what we're holding at.
Does the hold the Macharos by Kisem also or no?
What about Hashalach Kisem?
Yeah.
No, he's not. This is worse than Hashalach Kisem. This is the Gemara says not, well, whatever. This is, he sounded, when he's explaining this Ramah, like he was going like that. He says, this Ramah was totally that, and it's Chazar in the but at the end he ends off, it's only going to be mutter bebeis Hashem, so I mean, B'tzirif, another cooler. The Shach is not very happy with it.
The Shach says that there's a chiluk between, the Shach comes up, there's some chiluk between the Kisim and this.
Mm-hmm.
Does the house also say there's a chiluk?
No, it doesn't say it.
So, so this halacha is based on Hashlachas Kisim, so if he's only matter beis Yisrael, wouldn't he also only matter Kisim for Israel?
You're going backwards. This case is based on Hashlachas Kisem. We're saying, it doesn't say that. We're connecting it.
Right.
He's not so thrilled with that connection, so he's saying only be mako bebeis Yisrael. But see for Rabbeinu.
He's not saying that's from the Ramah. He's saying we'll.
No, the Ramah would have been right. The Ramah would have made all cases.
Right.
But what the Ramah's extension to make Hashlachas Kisem, to make this case an extension of Hashlachas Kisem is a chiddush. So he's only willing to be samach on the Ramah, but tzir of this other thing.
So it's two separate things. It's not. There's no reason why Kisim should only work based on Yisrael, right?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It's the Taz who's saying that. He's saying, I'm not so happy with this shot, and therefore I'm only going to be making but seriously else. The Shach himself is not so happy. The Prichodesh for sure says that. He says the Ramah is saying not like the Gemara. He brings the Torah's Chataf, where he's coming from. He says it's all wrong. He shouldn't pass like that. The Mechas Yaakov, which appears on the Torah's Chataf, from an early Achron, he's Samach on the Ramah. So there's so it's a shayla in the Achron whether to be Samach on this. Okay?
What is the shir? How close it has to be, though?
Has to be.
You're right.
To be Samach on the Ramah.
It's like putting on the counter. Obviously, put on the counter, it's not going to be good.
Right, so I don't know. That's like a funny thing. You're right. You think so it has to be something on the fire. I haven't a clue because I don't.
It gets warmer. It's got to get warmer.
Get warmer.
It's got to get warmer from the fire.
So it'll be pshat like Hashlachas. No, it'll be. We said this when we know we had to about Hashlachas Kisim that the Achronim there say that it has to be. You have to throw a kisem in a way that helps the cooking. And we wondered, what are you talking about? Shachs never helps the cooking. What it means is that it's done in a way that at least, like, if the fire would be bigger, or you would put in a log, it has something to do with the cooking. But we had talked about this back then.
I mean, that's the whole concept.
I think it's a Vater. I don't remember who says that. I don't remember who says it. So maybe over here also it has to be something that at least has some connection to cooking. On the counter, there's nothing. Maybe at least warm. I'm not sure what it means. Okay. So we're left with a shiloh here. Okay, some of the pshatim in the Ramah, say that the Ramah didn't mean anything. He basically didn't say anything. The Ramah is not saying anything different than the Gemara. Others, the Taz and the Shach, said the Ramah doesn't mean to argue on the Gemara but we may not agree with it, and some people accepted the Rama as is and took shot what it is. Okay, so just to summarize, or to end off, is really this style of making Bishul Yisroel is not usually the way we do it. Okay, this style, this halacha, which is that the guy made a fire and the Yid puts the food on or does something when it's on the fire, is not the style that we do it. Okay, it's for Sfaradim it is a little bit, but for Ashkenazim it's not the style of how we make something Bishul Yisroel. We don't usually the way we make Bishul Yisroel is by turning on the fire or by putting a kisei into the fire or doing something to work with the fire, not with putting the food on. Usually if anything, the guy is the one who puts the food onto the fire. This is not usually the style of how we make Bishul Yisroel. So really our case is not, so again, on a practical level, our case of a Yid putting food on would be negaya if something went wrong, or it was a strange situation. The guy's cooking the house and the Yid came to affect it or something like that, which is really a later halacha. It's not such, what we're saying, I guess good for us, it's not such a common case to know whether we have to be some and some. It's not a very normal way we would make Bishul Yisroel in a house or in a restaurant and like that. But we're sort of being left with a shiloh here on the Rama. I mean, not a shiloh. What people say about it. That's it.